Thank you. I love you. Right. Good morning. DJ, come here real quick. Just move this right here. Put it right there. How's everyone feeling this morning? Before we get into the speech, I got a few things that I want to just show and talk about for a moment. And I also have some books. Get these books for me, DJ. That box kind of heavy, but just take it over there where you sitting at. Put it over there where you. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I appreciate my wife, my beautiful wife, for coming up here to introduce me. I know she was nervous about it, but I told her there's no one else that I want to introduce me today, you know. I'm glad that my family's here today. I got emotional myself when I saw my aunts and my uncle and my cousins and my sisters. I got very emotional when they came in, you know. So if y'all see me cry today, just know I'm still a soldier. Don't get it twisted, right? Okay, so I got a few books that I want to pass out just really quick. For the three young ladies that came up here and shared Black history, the inventions, and the poems, can y'all come up here real quick? I just want to give y'all a book. So the book that I'm giving them, this is the second book that I published, A Butterfly in the Wind. Just take it, read it. There might be some things in there that you don't understand right now, but as you get older, I promise it will make sense. Great job, and keep doing the things that y'all are doing. Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, before I get into the Black History poster board and before I get into the speech, I want to take some time and just talk about this right here. DJ, come hold this up for me if you don't mind, son. As you all know, I am in the military, my wife and I both. And last year I deployed to Colombia, South America. I was there for 7 months. This right here is the Colombian Army's instructor badge. And to earn this badge, you have to be in an instructor position for 12 months. I was only there for 7 months. A lot of soldiers, a lot of American soldiers can walk around with the U.S. Army instructor badge, but not many can say that they earned this Colombian Army instructor badge. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to say we need to operate with a spirit of excellence at all times, wherever we go. There were so many great testimonies this morning, and a lot of things I wrote in my notes. Always be humble. Always treat people right. Always be willing to help people, even if you have to call on somebody else to come help them. Because like Minister Pittman said, it was cold outside, but she was concerned for that young man out there in that wheelchair. And even though she didn't go out there, she made a phone call to help him. I don't even think they gave me this because of how well I knew my job. I think they gave me this for how respectful I was, for how humble I was, for how grateful I was, and for how I always try to just show up and be helpful. And I just wanted to share this with you all because every chance I get to come here, I'm grateful for it. But when I'm deployed for 7 or 8 months at a time, it's difficult. And I just wanted to share this with you all to show you all how I'm representing not only the nation, but my community and my family. Because even though there's so many more people in the nation, my family and my community is so much more important to me. You can put that down, son. All right, you can take a seat. Thank you. Okay, so with this poster board right here, this is something that I wanted to create so that throughout the rest of this program and this celebration, once we all get up and move around freely, I want everybody to just take some time and come up here and read some of this information. I will talk about some of these things, but just to orient you to what I have here, and I will move out the way so everyone can see. On this left side, we have 5 of the 10 most important women in Black history. 10 of the most prominent women going back to hundreds of years ago. So that's what I have on the left side. And my wife and the kids, we made this board together. We all had a part in this. Across the top here, we have powerful quotes by African Americans or by great Black American leaders. Down the center, you can see the words justice, equity, liberty. We have Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who is known as the father of Black history. We have Jackie Robinson. We have Fred Gray, who was born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama, and I will talk more about him once I get into the speech. I have history about Black Wall Street and also Black inventors, which we already got a history piece about that. But there's a lot of great information on this board, right? And then one of the last things I put on this board is going to help me share with you all who I am. Yes, I'm from Chambers County. Yes, I'm in the military. Yes, I'm a husband. Yes, I'm a father. But last year, I did my ancestry DNA test kit. And I found out that I'm a 100% match to the Balanta tribe, to the tribe that is located in the land of Guinea-Bissau today. And when you come up here and look at this, you will see a small map down here. Now that's very important. The Guinea-Bissau people, the Balanta tribe, they came from the land of Ethiopia between the 13th and 14th century. And I will talk about Ethiopia as I get further in the speech as well. Now, one thing that I don't have on this board that I wanted to have is the family tree that I've been working on Ancestry.com. There's a lot of information. I didn't print it all out, but so far I've been able to track back to my 8th great-grandmother who came from Africa around the year 1680. A lot of important information. It took a lot of hours and even a few dollars to get some of that information, right? But I want to go ahead and get into the speech. So from the time I was a kid, Black History Month has been one of my favorite times of the year. It's always been something that I love to celebrate. I remember being in school writing papers and reading, but like people have came up here and said, there's a lot of information that we're not being taught in schools. In fact, I think there's a lot less information regarding Black history that's being taught in schools today than it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago. But also, we can't just rely on the public school system to teach us about our history. It's our job to go pick up books and go read books. That's why I publish books. I remember when I was doing spoken word, so many guys would say, man, come, let's get in the studio. Let's make a CD. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to talk about certain things, but I wanted to publish a book to encourage us to read more, because there's a lot of powerful history that we are never going to get in a public institution.
That's right. That's right.
Black history, I believe Black history is biblical, meaning I believe we start to get our first clues about the existence of Black people. I believe we get those clues in the Bible. In the beginning, in Genesis chapter 2, there was a river that flowed out of the Garden of Eden, and it parted into 4 heads. I'm paraphrasing, so if I make a mistake, just know I'm paraphrasing, right? It parted into 4 heads, and one of the places that that water flowed into was the land of Ethiopia. There may not have been any people in that land at that time, because up until that point, only Adam had been created. But the land of Ethiopia means the land of black-faced people. Historically, Ethiopia means the land of black-faced people. So that's one of our first clues that Black history has existed for a long time. And that's why I say Black history is biblical, because I know we've been taught that Black history started with slavery, and that's just not true. That is a part of our history. It is something that I will speak about today, but Black history did not start with slavery. Further down in chapter 12, Abraham and Sarah went down into Egypt. We know that Egypt and Ethiopia are located in Africa. We know that Egypt and Ethiopia were great kingdoms. They had kings. They had queens. They had universities. They were practicing medicine. They were doing mathematics. They were practicing astronomy. They were farming. They were navigating seas. Black history is biblical. It did not start with slavery. Now, to get into how the celebration of Black history started, I want to talk about Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He started Negro History Week in 1926. And I've heard people say over the years, oh, they give us February to celebrate Black history because it's the shortest month of the year. And that's not even true. Dr. Woodson chose a particular week in February because Frederick Douglass's and Abraham Lincoln's birthdays were in the week that he chose. And he chose that week because Frederick Douglass is still today top 10, one of the most prominent black men of all time. He was born as a slave. He learned how to read and write English. Let me say that, because a lot of times people say black people didn't know how to read and write until they came to America. But how can that be true if we had a whole way of life before we came to America? We might have learned how to write English. We might have learned how to speak English. But if we had already had a whole way of life, we had to be speaking and talking about something. Okay, now, Dr. Carter G. Woodson started Negro History Week in 1926. In time, we began to celebrate the entire month of February. He was an author, he was a historian, and he published many great books. And one of my favorite books is called The Miseducation of the Negro. Very powerful book, and I promise it will change the way you look at certain things. Even though it was published many years ago, it would change the way you see certain things today if you go read that book. Dr. Carter G. Woodson wanted to preserve Black history, and he took a stance. And now a movement that he started nearly 100 years ago is still going on today, and it's still thriving. Two of my favorite leaders of all time have always been Dr. Martin Luther King and the great Harriet Tubman. And as I got older, I started to learn about Malcolm X. And throughout these last few weeks, I've been listening to Dr. King. I've been listening to Marcus Garvey. I've been reading about women like Sojourner Truth. There were so many things I studied over the last month that I have to take a step back and I have to pause and I have to try to figure out, what do I want to share today? What do I want to speak about? Because even though I may only be up here and speaking for 15, 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, you can ask my wife. I probably spent 15, 20 hours studying, trying to put this speech together, trying to prepare this. Because when you show up, people say great things about you, and that's good. People look forward to you coming, and that's good. But you still have a job and an obligation to prepare something meaningful and impactful. You don't want to just show up and speak just because they say you speak well. You don't want to just show up and speak just because they say you're a great husband and a great father. You want to be meaningful and you want to be impactful. And you want to come up here with some truth. Now, a lot of the things that I say, have already said, I encourage you to go fact check it. Don't take anything from my word. Go read it. Go study it. Formulate your opinion. Formulate your belief. Take it upon yourself to continue to learn. Okay? Now, even though I talked about great things that were going on in the land of Africa, there was also some things that were not great. The Arab slave trade was one of those things. It existed from roughly the 7th century to the 19th century. And that primarily involved the trade of Eastern Africans or Africans in the East. Now, that's not the slave trade that brought our ancestors to the United States. The slave trade that brought our ancestors to the United States is known as the transatlantic slave trade. And we have been widely taught that the transatlantic slave trade started in 1619. But if you go back and read and if you go back and study, Africans were being brought into America as early as the year 1526 on slave ships. And they weren't only brought to America. They were taken to the West Indies. They were taken to the Caribbean islands. Black history is worldwide. I know oftentimes we only focus on African American history or Black Americans who have contributed to history, but Black history is worldwide. There were roughly 12 million of our ancestors brought to the Americas, West Indies, Caribbean islands during slavery. 2 to 2.5 million of those died in the Middle Passage. The Middle Passage was the middle part of the route in which they stopped in the Atlantic and they traded us off like commodities. They traded us off like stocks and goods. And one of my friends say, we were the first thing traded on the stock market and we don't even understand the stock market. And I'm guilty of that myself. I didn't start studying the stock market until about a year ago, but I can see the value in it. Saving our money is important, but investing our money and being able to earn 10 to 12% or more is even more important because that's how we're going to set up those funds to send our kids to college when we only make a certain amount of money. Investing, I'm not an expert. My cousin Ray here, in my eyes, he's an expert when it comes down to investing. He's the one who told me years ago, you need to open up a custodial account for your kids. And at that time, I had no clue what it was. But I opened up a 529 college savings plan. And now, Melody and Harmony at 5 and 7 have a 529 college savings plan and a custodial account. And right now, they both have $5,000 separately. And my goal by time they turn 18 is to ensure they at least have 20 to 25,000. And they already gonna go to school for free because I'm in the military. I've already transferred my post 9/11 benefits and they will more than likely be able to go to school in Alabama for free anyway. And they make A's and B's, so more than likely they're gonna earn scholarships anyway. But I'm still investing and I'm still putting up for their future because that's how we gonna get ahead in life. That's how we gonna create that generational wealth and pass down wealth like other races. We can't always blame and talk about how we've been oppressed. Because so many people have been oppressed and so many people are still being oppressed. But we have a lot of opportunities today, thanks to people like Dr. King, thanks to people like Harriet Tubman, for going back to free slaves after she had already gained her freedom. We have so many opportunities today because of those leaders. I know I'm talking about saving and investing in college. It's all a part of the Black History speech. And even though I prepared, you always have to let the Spirit lead you when you show up. And I told Minister Eddie this when I did the graduation speech in 2023. I said, man, you always have to prepare. And he said, yeah, you're right, Martinez. And he said, man, you have pages and pages and pages and notes. But when you show up, you have to let the Spirit lead you. Black history is biblical. Black history is worldwide. Black history did not start with slavery. All right. Now, in the year 1807, the transport of slaves from one nation to another was actually outlawed. But the slave trade continued illegally up until the year 1860. And in 1860, the last known slave ship, keep in mind I said last known, because there could have been more ships that were not known. The last known slave ship to enter into the United States of America in 1860 departed from Mobile River in Alabama. It went to Africa and it came back to Mobile River in Alabama. And that slave ship was called Clotilda. There was a documentary on Netflix called The Descendant. If you never saw it, I encourage you to watch it. It may not still be on Netflix, but I'm sure you can find it. And there was a man named Cudjoe Lewis that came back on that ship, and him and his family started a town in Mobile called Africatown. And that town is still there today, and it's still thriving. All right? In 1861, the Civil War started. It lasted until 1865. And the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation that was signed by Abraham Lincoln in 1863, those were two of the things that led to the freedom of our ancestors. But they were not all free until June 19, 1865, when General Order 3 was issued by General Gordon Granger. And he was a white man. And there were a lot of white men back in that day and time, they hated his guts. because they did not like the fact that he signed that order and delivered it to Texas to free the remainder of the slaves in Texas. That's why we celebrate Juneteenth. June 19th, 1865. Very important date to remember. Okay? Now, I believe that's enough talk about the slave trade. That's part of our history. It's an ugly part of our history. But I believe we have to be willing to understand our past and understand our history. And sometimes it's those tough seasons and those tough periods and the ugly things that we go through that make us who we are. That make us the beautiful people who we are. And if I could take a moment to just sidetrack off of that, at 13, I couldn't have saw myself being up here holding this microphone. I couldn't have saw it at 15. I definitely couldn't have saw it at 17, because that's when I started smoking weed. And I don't still smoke weed, let me say that. But as a teenager, I decided I want to have a bottle. I want to go out here and have a smoke. And I quit the football team and I started running with people who were doing other things. And I can't blame them for what I did, because nobody made me do anything. I did what I wanted to do, and those were some of the things I did. And there was a time in my life when I was riding around with a loaded shotgun, slugs and buckshots. There was a time when I had multiple substances in my car. There was a time when I was under the influence. So I could have got trapped out there. I could have died out there. I could have killed somebody. Because twice in my life, I've had a gun drawn on me. Once in the street and once by a police officer. I had a gun pointed at my back. So I know every time I speak, every time I go and say something anywhere, I always talk about how grateful I am, because I know I could not be here today. But if I had not been through the things that I went through at 17, 18, 19, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I wouldn't be able to come up here and share this story that I'm sharing today. Now, to get back on track, a lot of brutal things that we went through. But even in the face of adversity and even in the face of bondage, we had people who decided, I would learn how to read English anyway. I would learn how to write English anyway. I will try to fight to free my people. And there were revolts. Nat Turner led one of the most famous revolts, but one of the most successful became the Haitian Revolution. In the land of Haiti, slavery existed in the land of Haiti. And the French did not want to outlaw slavery, but the Africans in Haiti were so determined to end it, they fought for their freedom. And a few years after the fact, the French tried to reinstate it, but once again, they fought once again, and they earned their freedom. So Haiti became an independent state because of our ancestors fighting for their freedom. We have certain rights today because we had people like Frederick Douglass, Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. And sometimes I hear people say, oh, I'm not a Martin Luther King guy. Malcolm X was my guy. And sometimes I hear people say, nah, I wasn't really a Malcolm X guy. I was a Martin Luther King guy. I personally think you can learn something from both. They both stood up for something. They were both willing to die for what they believed in. They were educated. They were respected. Some people hated them, but that's okay. But they were educated. They were respectful. They were respected. They were powerful. And even when they disagreed with people in interviews, they were very professional and tactful about it. So there's a certain way that we need to do things even today. It's not always with our fists. It's not always with our guns. You can be confident and bold and say what you say in a professional way and walk away from the situation. We've invented many great things, as the young lady has already said. Traffic lights. We invented certain things that advanced vehicles, peanut butter, security systems. There was a man named Lewis Latimer, and I learned this recently because we had to help Harmony with a project. There was a man named Lewis Latimer. He actually helped with the inventions of the telephone and the light bulb. But we barely ever hear that. We always hear about Alexander Graham Bell, but you never hear about Lewis Latimer. Okay? But I want to share this poem that I wrote last year. And, you know, when I talk about how I decided to change and why I decided to change, this poem will tell you why. Last year, I did a speech in Chambers County for Black History Month. I spoke at W.F. Burns, I spoke at Lafayette High School, and I spoke at Valley High School. And my man, Rob Tavius Madden, Rob Media Company, he was there with me on that journey. He was there and he recorded. And one of the last questions I got asked was, Martinez, what finally made you decide to change your life? You talked about how there was a time when you were out in the street smoking and drinking. You talked about how there was a time you were being disrespectful to your mom and you weren't coming home and you were riding with guns. You talked about a time when you were sagging your pants and you wanted to be a thug or you wanted to be a gangster. What finally made you decide to change? And I'm about to tell you why. This poem is called From Enslavement to Mass Incarceration. I visited the Legacy Museum the other day. And all throughout the building were the words, from enslavement to mass incarceration. Many of our ancestors came here against their own will. Yet you ended up behind bars by way of your own will. You chose to commit crimes and violent acts when you knew that there was and is a system, laws, and agendas intact to keep you down, to keep you in chains, to bring forth hurt, dishonor, misfortune, and shame. How would our ancestors feel if they could see you now? Those who jumped off ships to die at sea rather than live in chains? Those who were beaten, assaulted, inflicted with pain? Those who were raped, burned by flames, removed from their homes, and given new names? How would our ancestors feel if they could see you now? How long will you wait? And what will it take? How long will you wait? And what will it take? How long will you wait? And what will it take for you to turn your life around? That's why I decided to change. Not only did I not want to be an embarrassment to my family, not only did I want to respect my mom and be something that she could be proud of and respect my Uncle Warren, who is one of the first great fathers I saw. Not only did I want to respect my aunts and my cousin Dee Dee, but I thought about all the great history. I thought about all the things that we've been through, all of the abundance, all the turmoil, all of the lynching, all of the killings, all of the rapings. I thought about all of those things. And one day I was just like, why would I go out here and sag my pants? Why would I go out here and shoot somebody that looks just like me? Why would I shoot somebody anyway? The Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And sometimes we put conditions on that, but there are no conditions on that. It says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. It don't say if they black. It don't say if they go to church on the same day of the week as you. It don't say if they work the same job as you. It say love your neighbor as you love yourself. So I decided I wanted to change because there were people who fought for me to have rights that I have today. I'm so thankful to be here. I hope that this has been meaningful and impactful for you. I hope you have learned something. And I want everyone to come up here as we start to move around and get ready to eat. I want everyone to come up here and just look at this board and just take a look at it. And not only should we celebrate today, this is something that we should celebrate every day. And we should continue to share our history, not only with Black Americans or African Americans, but with anyone who will listen. Thank you again, Pastor Hall, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to all of my family members who came here today. Thank you to my church family. Thank you to everyone who is here. Thank you so much.